It's me, the D-O-double-G. Welcome to the Eden Army Podcast with your host tonight, Pete Robert Tucci.
Thank you, Snoop D-O-double-G. Correct. My name is Pete Robert Tucci, and this is the Eden Army Podcast. We've got Terry in the house tonight. Of course, Guy, Battle Buddy number 1. Eden Army number 1 is in the house. Looks like Botrix made it. And we'll see how things populate as we go. Meta and Will are here. Guys, thank you for joining me on a Thursday night. I think we're going to probably stay in this time slot here now that some of the other podcasters have kind of moved to different avenues. So I think we're going to stick to Thursday night. That'll give me Friday night free up here in the North Woods of Wisconsin. So that's good stuff. Yes, I am wearing a sweater. I know. You guys don't like that. You're probably roasting down south. Russ is over there in a 102-degree trailer in Oklahoma. Us in the Northwoods, we're going to get down in the 50s tonight or something like that. So a little chilly here. But it's good to see everybody. Corey is in the house. Good stuff. Good stuff. So, yeah, so I'm exhausted, guys. I'm not even going to lie to you. Kelly, good to see you, brother. I am exhausted. I was up all night last night. Melissa kept me up. My wife of 25-ish years, 22, 3 years, kept me up all night long last night, ladies and gentlemen. She still got it, but it wasn't in a good way. Okay, as soon as I got to sleep, as soon as I got that deep REM sleep, I took a knee right to the crotch. Okay, so now I'm awake. So I say, okay, it was an accident. So she puts her arm around me. Then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the claws come out and immediately start scratching the hell out of me. So I don't know what the hell she was dreaming last night, but it wasn't anything good. But the good news is she can certainly defend herself if she has to, I guess. But Opie, good to see you, brother. Thanks for joining us on a Thursday night, Opie. I know we changed it last minute, but I think this is going to, like I was telling everybody else, this is going to be our normal time frame. So I think we're gonna do this thing here. Big news week. We'll talk about what we're gonna do. I did the PowerPoint. Actually, started doing the PowerPoint for the EMP thing we were gonna do. And after we got out of that 1 month cycle, basically 90% of America is dead. So there wasn't too much for me to add. So basically, here's my EMP status report after 1 month. 9 out of 10 people are dead. And you're on your own. So that's where we're at on that. So we're going to do news. And then we'll of course, have a Q&A over on Kick after the fact. But, Mama, there she is right there. What you missed, Miss Melissa, is I was explaining to them how you were nice enough to really rock my world last night and keep me up from 1 o'clock in the morning till about 4:30. I appreciated that very much. You still got it, sweetheart. So, but with that being said, remember, guys, if you have any questions, do the hashtag Russ or the hashtag Pete, and we'll make sure we get that highlighted for you. Good to see you, Chris. I'm glad you're here, brother. Hope everything is good down south. But with that being said, let's hit that commercial, and then we'll get into the news, Russ. What do you say? Perfect. Still 5 spots available for that training at Fallout, the 2 days after Fallout. So get your spot. We need a minimum of 12 participants, and I mean, we can make it do. I think we can make it do with what we have now, but if we can get all 5, that will make the people at Troy's Gate a little happier and a little more willing to bring us back, right? So let's go ahead and try to get those. And again, like I told you guys before, if you can't afford both days, it's $500 for both days. Please put your deposit down, and that will at least get you locked in for the Troy's Gate experience. You won't have to pay anything more than that, just your deposit. So that'll be good to go. So who else jumped in? Agnes, good to see you. Easy. There's a viewing party going on my porch right now next to the hot tub. We got Lily out there. We got Mama Tooch, and we have Javi, of course, with all 3 dogs. Well, actually all 4 dogs right now at this point. So that's what we're doing up in the North Woods of Wisconsin. But it has been a pretty busy news week. I don't know if you guys saw it, but Benjamin Netanyahu gave a spectacular speech in front of Congress this week. Some are even comparing it to the June 4th, 1940 Winston Churchill speech, right? You remember that one? Storm the Beach speech. While it was going on, though, anti-Israeli protesters were burning outside, burning down American flags, Israeli flags, as well as vandalizing some of the beautiful monuments in Washington, D.C. Some vandals even sprayed "Hamas is coming," insinuating that the terrorist organization would be in America soon. But with the open border policies, there's no doubt in my mind that they're already here. So Rashida Tlaib, the pro-Hamas Congress lady, held up a war criminal sign during the entire 52-minute speech. But notably missing during that speech was the Democratic nominee for president, Mrs. Knee Pads herself, Kamala Harris. Okay, can I say that? I can't say that right now. I'm still on the traditional platform. So Kamala Harris was missing, but there were reports that she was going to meet with Netanyahu at some point today. So I don't know what the outcome of that was actually going to be, if we ever hear what the outcome is. The White House did come out. Spokesperson Andrew Bates said, identifying with evil terrorist organizations like Hamas, burning the American flag and forcibly removing the American flag and replacing it with another is disgraceful. That's the hard talk coming from the White House. That's their stance. Okay. Now, we did make a montage of the speech. I didn't put in all 52 minutes, but I did. It is a little bit lengthy, but I felt like I didn't want to cut out the main parts of it if you guys didn't see it. So it is a little bit lengthy. Jeff, good to see you, brother. Good to see that you made it in. So you can cue that speech up, Russ, and we'll bear with me, guys.
That Iran is funding and promoting anti-Israel protests in America. They want to disrupt America. So these protesters
actual footage,
American flags,
that
even
picture
on
was
the 4th of July. And I wish to salute the fraternity brothers at the University of North Carolina who protected the American flag against these anti-Israel protesters. For all we know, Iran is funding the anti-Israel protests that are going on right now outside this building. Not that many, but they're there, and throughout the city. Well, I have a message for these protesters. When the tyrants of Tehran, who hang gays from cranes and murder women for not covering their hair, are praising, promoting, and funding you, you have officially become Iran's useful idiots. These protesters chant, "From the river to the sea," but many don't have a clue what river and what sea they're talking about. They not only get an F in geography, they get an F in history. They call Israel a colonialist state. Don't they know that the land of Israel is where Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob prayed, where Isaiah and Jeremiah preached, and where David and Solomon ruled. For nearly 4,000 years, the land of Israel has been the homeland of the Jewish people. It's always been our home. It will always be our home. It's not only the campus protesters who get it wrong. It's also the people who run those campuses. 80 years after the Holocaust, 80 years after the Holocaust, the presidents of Harvard, Penn, and I'm ashamed to say my alma mater, MIT, couldn't bring themselves to condemn the calls for the genocide of Jews. You remember what they said? They said, it depends on the context. Well, let me give these befuddled academics a little context. Anti-Semitism is the world's oldest hatred. For centuries, the massacre of Jews was always preceded by wild accusations. We were accused of everything from poisoning wells, to spreading plagues, to using the blood of slaughtered children to bake Passover matzahs. These preposterous anti-Semitic lies led to persecution, mass murder, and ultimately to history's worst genocide, the Holocaust. Now, just as malicious lies were leveled for centuries at the Jewish people, malicious lies are now being leveled at the Jewish state.
Remember, guys, that's the first order of business, right? When you want to start a war with somebody, first you dehumanize them, right? You make them less than human. And then it's okay. It's okay to do whatever you want to do with them at that point because they're not humans. They're just dogs, right, at that point. Although I hold my dogs in higher regard than most humans, I should say. Keep this going. Sorry.
No, don't applaud. Listen. The outrageous slanders that paint Israel as racist and genocidal are meant to delegitimize Israel, to demonize the Jewish state, and to demonize Jews everywhere. And no wonder we've witnessed an appalling rise of anti-Semitism in America and around the world. My friends, whenever and wherever we see the scourge of anti-Semitism, we must unequivocally condemn it and resolutely fight it, without exception. And don't be fooled when the blood libels against the Jewish state come from people who wear fancy silk robes and speak in lofty tones about law and justice. Here's a case in point. The prosecutor of the International Criminal Court has shamefully accused Israel of deliberately starving the people of Gaza. This is utter, complete nonsense. It's a complete fabrication. Israel has enabled more than 40,000 aid trucks to enter Gaza. That's 500,000 tons of food. And that's more than 3,000 calories for every man, woman, and child in Gaza. If there are Palestinians in Gaza who aren't getting enough food, it's not because Israel is blocking it, it's because Hamas is stealing it.
Exactly. And that's what we've been saying the whole time. There has always been excess capacity at those border crossings for humanitarian aid. But one of two things is happening. Simply the aid wasn't there, or the aid that did get through, Hamas was stealing for their own good. So that's, but could you imagine if we had a leader like that for the last 4 years? Someone that could speak off of cue cards rather than stand up and be a lettuce head during a debate. That would be something special. I don't think there'd be much going on bad in the world right now. I should note that 23 out of a couple of thousand protesters were arrested during that DC event. And again, weakness from the administration, just saying, man, that's a disgrace. Please, if those were single white, right-leaning males that were Christians doing that, it'd be a huge insurrection, right? Give me a break. This administration is disgusting. They're disgraceful. And it doesn't get any better bringing Mrs. Knee Pads on scene because she's going to keep the same ideology. And even worse, they're starting right now to scrub her record. Websites that once said she's the most liberal person in Senate has automatically just disappeared. Okay? They're trying to even say now she wasn't the border czar. Please, you can't erase history. In this day and age of the internet, you better believe that all that stuff's going to come out. But what will they do? They'll label it as misinformation. Facebook has already started doing that, by the way. I see more and more things that are now being fact-checked. But all those things that are being fact-checked are things that make the left look bad. So that's what's going on right now with our wonderful constitutional republic. Where was I at? Oh, the Democrats did this week. The Democrats did successfully oust the presidential candidate, ignoring the 14 million primary votes Joe Biden received, making people wonder, who exactly is the real threat to democracy? They're constantly saying that the MAGA Republicans are the biggest threat to democracy. Yet, like I said last week, and like I'm going to say again this week, they just spit in the face of democracy when they discarded 14 million votes for Kamala Harris. Now, Kamala Harris was appointed to run for president by elite leftist politicians and wealthy donors. Harris reportedly has raised nearly $100 million since she was anointed. She claims that most of these donations were from small donors. However, the bulk of the funds came from a super PAC that's been accused in the past of fraudulently adding senior citizens' names as donors, even though they never contributed, making it look like they're getting small contributions. A side note to that, as far as the donors are concerned, co-founder of Netflix reportedly donated $7 million to the Harris campaign. But during all this, it seems that the call to tone down the rhetoric has quickly fell by the wayside. Both Camilla Knee Pads Harris and the vegetable that's sitting in the White House right now continue to say that Donald Trump wants to be king. Continuing to say that Donald Trump is the one that's a threat to the democracy. Let's see Biden's farewell speech this week. You're up.
My fellow Americans, I'm speaking to you tonight from behind the resolute desk in the Oval Office. It's been the honor of my life to serve as your president. But in the defense of democracy, which is at stake, I've made it clear that I believe America is at an inflection point. One of those rare moments in history when the decisions we make now will determine our fate of our nation and the world for decades to come. America's going to have to choose between moving forward or backward, between hope and hate, between unity and division. We have to decide, do we still believe in honesty, decency, respect?
I don't know, guys. Does that seem like he's toning down the rhetoric to you? Doesn't seem like he's toning it down very much. Let's see what else this knucklehead has to say.
Freedom, justice, and democracy. Does character and public life still matter? I believe my record as president, my leadership in the world, my vision for America's future, all merited a second term. But nothing can come in the way of saving our democracy. I'm going to call for Supreme Court reform because this is critical to our democracy, Supreme Court reform.
Sorry, guys. Let it be known I did cut and splice this up. I wasn't going to submit you to the entire 11 minutes of this guy babbling like a mental patient. So I did kind of cut and splice some of this stuff.
You know, we've come so far since my inauguration. On that day, I told you as I stood in that we stood in a winter of peril and a winter of possibilities. Peril and possibilities. For unvaccinated, we are looking at a winter of severe illness and death for unvaccinated.
Didn't sound like what he just said there in the speech. Now he said a winter of death.
We were in the grip of the worst pandemic in the century, the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression, the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. Today, the violent crime rate is at a 50-year low. We're also securing our border. Border crossings are lower today than when the previous administration left office. I also kept my commitment to have an administration that looks like America and be a president.
That's the administration. I paused it. I'm sorry. I don't pause these things, but I get fired up when it comes to this stuff, right? That's the administration right there, folks, that looks like America. Not my America. The 1% of Americans that are a freak show, a circus, that's his administration. That's the left's ideology. That's what we're going to get more of when we see Kamala Harris in office. Sorry. Carry on.
For all Americans. That idea is that we hold these truths to be self-evident. We're all created equal.
All created
endowed
equal.
by our Creator certain inalienable rights.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights.
Life.
See what they're doing there? The little nuances in the rewriting of history, the little subtractions, instead of saying all men are created equal, which, of course, when they wrote that, they didn't mean all men, they meant all people. But he specifically omitted that from his speech. And he did that for a reason, obviously, and that's the ideology, right? That's to demasculate the man like they've been doing. That's to get rid of that toxic masculinity, right? So that's what he does there. And we're going to get more of it.
Liberty, pursuit of happiness. We've never fully lived up to it, to this sacred idea. When Ben Franklin was asked, as he emerged from the convention going on, whether the founders had given America a monarchy or republic, Franklin's response was, a republic, if you can keep it. A republic, if you can keep it. Whether we keep our republic is now in your hands.
There you go, guys. So that's your illustrious leader, okay, Mr. Babblemouth himself. 11-minute speech with 3 teleprompters in front of him, I'm sure. Benjamin Netanyahu did 52 minutes, and he was using cue cards. So that's the difference in the world. That's how the world sees America right now. And unfortunately, when the cackler gets in office, if she does, there'll be much, much more of that going on. So, incredible. It's political season, ladies and gentlemen. This is, you're going to get this for the next couple months. Sorry, I apologize. But I do take this stuff kind of seriously. And I don't just look at it from a narrow angle. I try to open it up for everybody. If the Democrats lived up to what they used to do, I would be a Democrat still. I'm the guy that changed once I decided what they were doing with my money, where they were putting our money, and how hard I was working to make my money. So, but Will says he's furious. I get it. You're furious. We all are. What's the end game? I don't know. But continue your preparations like you have been, because at the end of the day, you don't need to worry about the government, right? You just take care of you and yours. I'm just going back and reading a little bit of, New York is having a fire sale. You're right, Jeff. Good to see you. Dan, I saw Dan in there. Good to see you, Dan. Oh, Kelly, you did. How'd he look? I saw his Band-Aid was getting a little smaller. That's good. Kelly says he saw Trump in person yesterday in Charlotte. So very cool. Hopefully you got some pictures. Send me some pictures if you took any. So there is some news coming out of Israel this week. IDF recovered the bodies of 5 hostages, each killed on October 7th by the Palestinian ruling authority. You know, and it's important. You know, just like Joe Biden said, took away all men are created equal, it's important that we recognize exactly who's in charge of the Palestinian people. So they can say, well, the Palestinians, you know, you're killing all the Palestinians. The Palestinians elected Hamas, and guess who's ruling the Palestinians? So I'm not going to say Hamas. It's the Palestinian ruling party. Okay, no different than how we as citizens get blamed for what our government does around the world. Okay, because we elected our leaders. Guess what? The Palestinian people also elected their ruling party, and that's a terrorist organization. So the IDF, anyway, the IDF, acting on intelligence from interrogations, was able to locate the 5 dead bodies in a tunnel under the city of Han Yunis. The United States continues to push Israel for a ceasefire, even though 5 U.S. citizens are still believed to be held alive, and another 3 dead bodies of United States citizens are being held by the Palestinian ruling party, probably in a tunnel somewhere. So that's a tough stance, again, that this administration has. And you know what? I remember when Donald Trump says, you better have all of our hostages back by the time I take office. And I believe that. I believe that he means that. And if not, I believe if he does take office, we're going to see a different climate in the Middle East. Let's cue that IDF video.
During intelligence-based IDF operations in Khan Yunis, 5 Israeli hostages who were killed on October 7th and held captive in Gaza ever since were rescued and returned home to Israel for burial. Maya Goren, age 56, was a mother of 4 and a kindergarten teacher from Kibbutz Nir Oz. She spent her life caring for the youngest children on the kibbutz. On the morning on October 7th, Maya went early to set up the kindergarten for the following day. While she was there, Hamas terrorists began their invasion of the kibbutz. The terrorists attacked and murdered Maya inside the kindergarten and abducted her into Gaza. Her husband, Avner, was also murdered inside the kibbutz on October 7th. 4 IDF reservists and soldiers, Master Sergeant Oren Goldin, Sergeant Major Ravid Aryeh Katz, Staff Sergeant Tomer Achimas, and Sergeant Kirill Brodetsky, who fought and fell in the battle against invading terrorists on October 7th, were also abducted into Gaza. They too were rescued together with Maya and brought home for burial. Today, our thoughts are with their families. The Hamas terror organization abducted our hostages into their tunnels, 20 meters below the city of Tunis. This was underneath an area that was previously designated as a humanitarian area by the IDF. An area where Gazan civilians to move away from the battlefield and receive humanitarian aid and shelter. Hamas exploited the humanitarian area and used it to hold our hostage captive. Hamas continues to hold 115 hostages, including women, children, and the elderly, Israelis and foreign nationals, in brutal conditions inside Gaza. We are determined to use all operational and intelligence means to bring home all our hostages. Any decent country in the world would do the same. And we will continue to fulfill this vital mission.
And I believe they will, as long as we don't put handcuffs on them. And you know what? It's something that echoed with me when I was listening back to the Netanyahu speech. I had a friend of mine who was getting deployed. He was a member of the, anyway, he's a friend of mine. He's active right now. And I immediately texted him on October 8th. And of course, he couldn't talk to me because they were cleaning up in the South. And but he did get back to me. And the only thing he had mentioned, his text had 3 words. And Netanyahu said these 3 words: "We will win." That's the resolve of the Israeli people. That's a resolve of the IDF. And there's no doubt in my mind that they're going to win as long as we allow them. Benjamin Netanyahu said that he could end this war within a few days if the United States gave him the arms that he needed to make it happen. And I suspect he could probably also do the same on his northern border with Hezbollah. So let me look through some of the chat real quick, Russ, before we move over to intermission. And then again, guys, if you're watching anywhere else, doesn't look like there's many people on the other platforms, but we primarily stream on a platform called Kick. Let me pop that banner up real quick. I got it, I think, maybe. Right here. So if you want to get a hold of the after show, if you want to see what we really think and get away from some of these traditional platforms that may censor us, go to kick.com/Pete-Robert Tucci, and you could see the after show. So with all that being said, I'm going to go to an intermission. I'm going to read some of the chat. If you guys have any questions, if you want to vent over there on Kick, I prefer you do it over there to keep yourself out of trouble. But that's where we're going to be here in a couple minutes. So we're going to see you in a few minutes on the other side, guys.